Good morning, Bucknutters. Welcome to the Bucknuts Morning 5 here on Friday, December 26th, 2025. I am Dave Biddle. Very happy joined by Jonah Booker. Hope everyone had a great Christmas. Well, some late breaking news this morning. Sounds like Kyle Whittingham is the favorite to be the new head coach at Michigan, Jay Book. Again, not a done deal yet, but you have heavy hitters like Pete Thamel and Dan Wetzel who are very connected, both saying Whittingham has emerged as the favorite. Could happen pretty quick. He's 66 years old. He's been at Utah the last 21 years. I've always liked him, so it's going to be weird like hating him if he's in maize and blue. But
Right.
if that does transpire, your thoughts, JB?
To me, it looks like a situation to where Michigan, they're trying to get an adult in the room who's going to be able to manage them through all of the chaos and all of the craziness that's going on up at Michigan. Now, he's done a wonderful job at Utah. You have to question, is this a situation to where very similar to the Raiders hiring Pete Carroll, trying to just get someone in there who's going to be a stable force to help them navigate through these rough waters? I mean, at the age of 66, Dave, like how much is left in the tank? When you look at the way he left Utah, it was kind of, I don't know, it was weird because they were saying, oh, he's semi-retired or he's retiring. He made some comments saying he doesn't want to be somewhere he's not wanted. And it almost sounds like Utah was trying to force him out politely to try to go into a more younger direction. And so when you look at him saying, hey, I don't want to be somewhere where I'm not wanted, at a place where he's been at Utah for a very long time, that right there kind of raises your antennas to say, hey, what really happened there? Because this was a Utah team that was kind of in the hunt for the Big 12. And with him, it's you're going to have a good year, a down year, a good year, kind of middle of the pack type of year. I'm curious to see how he's going to be able to recruit at Michigan. I think he's going to have to rely on a rock solid staff who's going to be able to recruit at a high level and rely on coordinators and potentially a general manager who's going to be able to really bring in those high-end recruits. Because think about it, Dave. What did we hear? What was the one thing that we've heard about Larry Johnson and Nick Saban even mentioned it? Schools using age to recruit against him, to saying, oh, he's only going to be there for 2 to 3 more years, or he may not be there very long. When you're talking about a coach at the age of 66, they're going to definitely use that as a recruiting pitch against Michigan.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting when this happened. He was mentioned last week. At first, he wasn't mentioned at all because they struck out on their top 2 candidates. It sounds like with Kalen DeBoer and Kenny Dillingham, and then it sounded like Jeff Brom. You know, one of the Michigan insiders was like saying that sounds like Jeff Brom. That sounds like that fizzled out. It's probably a good thing for Michigan. So I thought about this. I was like, if they hire Whittingham, my first thought this morning was, man, that feels like a stopgap. Then I thought about it, like, yeah, it is a stopgap, but maybe that's not a bad idea because you struck out on your top 2 candidates. Like you said, I think you had the perfect phrase. They need an adult in the room. And that is like what Kyle Whittingham is. And he might only be there. He's 66. Maybe he's only there for 4 years. But if he can kind of like steady the ship a little bit, I don't think they'd win big with him there. But right. They could be like a solid team and then find, their next head coach here when things are more stable in a few years. That might not be long-term a terrible decision for them, but seems like their boards, most people on their boards are nonplussed about it. Like they're not pissed, but they're not exactly excited about this, it seems like.
Right. I mean, the name Todd Monken, the Ravens offensive coordinator, used to be the OC at Georgia when they won back-to-back. His name was getting thrown out there yesterday as well. So for Michigan, I mean, you're very late in the cycle. I think they were going to be screwed no matter what. Especially with the way that everything's going down when you have an investigation into the athletic department. I still have no idea how Ward Manuel has a job right now. I mean, he must know where the bodies are buried or something, because for him to get out of this scathing clean, that's pretty eye-opening on their part. But for Michigan, Kyle Whittingham, he would be solid. He would be the adult in the room, but I don't think they're going to be in a position to win a national championship under his leadership. I have very, very quite big questions about how he's going to be able to recruit there. and will he be able to retain a lot of those players? Biff Poggi came to the podium, and which was another weird. Biff is entertaining, if anything, to come out on I believe it's an opposing team's podcast for the bowl game says, "Oh yeah, we may have 25 players opt out of the bowl game." If that's the case, I don't think will those 25 players even come back to Michigan? Like are they? I don't know how Michigan is loaded for the NFL draft, but this 25 players opting out, that seems like quite a bit of players that just kind of saying, "I'm done with Michigan." I'm not sure how that's going to play out.
Yeah, and if Whittingham does take the job, then he's got like just a few days to get like the portal situation. I do want to backtrack on something that I said a couple weeks ago. Okay, and Mike is totally right. Mike's calling me out. Listen, if in life, I feel like if you're wrong about something, just admit it. He said, Dave, you haven't backtracked on your negative comments about Pac-Man Jones not being a good role model for Chris Henry Jr. I said I was concerned about that. I didn't say flat out because I've always liked Pac-Man, but he's had some issues with getting in trouble a lot. Trust me, I liked Pac-Man a lot when he was with the Bengals, so I followed his career closely. But I backtrack. He's been a very good role model for Chris Henry Jr. I was concerned maybe he wasn't, and I was completely wrong. So you're right, Mike Green. I backtrack. I strike that from the record if possible. If not, it's on the record, and I just was wrong, and I take it back. All right, my apologies. Mea culpa. So there you go. Chris Henry Jr., awesome. All right, so yeah, let's move on. We'll see about what happens with Michigan. I want to talk Ohio State. 5 days and counting. We're not going to give predictions on the show unless you want to. I've been drilled down on my specific prediction with the game not being tomorrow. But
no, I haven't put out my prediction yet either.
So like, you know, I saw what you said. Like Miami fans are like chirping, huh? I didn't know they even had like many fans, but the ones they have are chirping, huh?
They're crazy. They're wild, man. I don't think they have the numbers as Tennessee fans last year. The Tennessee fans were absolutely batshit crazy on X leading up to that game. Miami fans, they're right up there. They are talking crazy and reckless. If you would listen to what's been going on in the dialogues on X over the last week, Ohio State has no chance up front. Miami's better than them on both sides of the football when it comes to the offensive line and defensive line. And what I said, and Dave, you follow this team for a very long time. You've been on the beat for a long time. Anytime Ohio State has to sit and let it brew for 2 weeks where they have to hear, especially up front in the trenches, how they're not as good, the other team's better. What do they always do? Don't they come and answer the bell? Always. We've seen it year after year. You know, people's like, well, what about Michigan? I'm specifically saying when they have to sit for 2 weeks and let it brew for a couple weeks, they always come out with some type of chip on their shoulder. We saw it against Tennessee. A lot of people talked about it with Oregon. They heard about Texas. They last year and this year. What did they hear all offseason against Texas? Oh, that Texas front seven is going to destroy this rebuilt Ohio State offensive line. And lo and behold, they went out there and handled their business. So I'm confident that this Ohio State front, they will be up to the task against a very talented Miami front. But the way you hear it, I mean, David Pollock, they're both Miami's better than those guys on both sides of the ball up front. Letting those guys hear it, and they trust me, they hear the noise, they hear all of the chirping, and those guys, they take it personal. And here's the one thing that people don't account for, and you can't, there's no way to quantify it. But when you have an Ohio State team that is this talented, that is motivated with a chip on their shoulder, they are a very, very, very dangerous football team. Because it's one thing to say, hey, I'm ticked off or I'm motivated, and you're a good team. But when you have this much talent, arguably the most talent in all of college football, when they play like their hair is on fire, they're very tough to beat.
Yeah, you nailed it. I mean, it reminds, and we have somebody in the chat saying I've said this too. It reminds me a lot of Tennessee fans last year. You know, they were overconfident. Now the game's not at Neyland North this year; it's at the Cotton Bowl. But nicknaming our stadium Neyland North, that was a bold move, Cotton.
Yeah.
Let's see if it works out for you. Yeah, it does. It reminds me a lot of Tennessee last year. And like you said, like when Ohio State has a chip on their shoulder, look out. They're already the more talented team. And I think Miami's a very talented team. I don't think that's up for debate, but Ohio State's the more talented team. I mean, Ohio State's got like 5 guys projected to go in the first round of this next year's draft. That doesn't include guys like JJ and Julian, who are going to be at the top of the following draft. And Miami's got a lot of talent. Like I thought they were the better team going into the Texas A&M game. And they clearly were going to Kyle Field and winning, but I like the Buckeyes' chances a lot. They're still favored by 9.5. That's the biggest point spread of any of the.
Are you surprised that line hasn't been bet down? Like it's almost interesting because it started so high and it's still fairly high that a lot of the sharps and a lot of people really haven't bet that number down dramatically. I think for this game, Dave, it all comes out to how do they play Carson Beck? Because under pressure, when he's blitz and you create havoc, he's rated the 112th quarterback in all of college football. But if you sit back and kind of sit in zone and you don't get after him, you don't heat him up, he's rated the 18th best quarterback. So it's a dramatic, like opposite ends of the spectrum. And Matt Patricia, over the last 6 weeks, he hasn't had to be very creative. They've been very base sound because they've been overwhelming teams with their talent. Even against Indiana, they really didn't blitz a whole lot. They used Arvell Reese as a spy on Mendoza for that game. Held them to 13 points, their lowest output of the season, without really doing any twists, any stunts, being very just simplistic. For this particular game, when you know that Carson Beck struggles whenever he's heated up, I'm curious to see if Matt Patricia decides that, hey, we're gonna unleash some things, or will they still kind of stay fundamentally sound and say, hey, we've done this all year. The most points we've given up is 13 points, just being who we are, a very base defense. So that's right there is a storyline within itself that I'm looking forward to. But I want to get your take on the betting line first.
Yeah, I'm probably going to pick Ohio State to win by about 10, maybe 13, somewhere around there is what I'm thinking right now. I'm going to drill down on it. Because I think Ohio State's the more talented team, even though Miami's more talented. I think Ohio State's, I have a lot of respect for Cristobal. I think Ohio State's got the better coaching staff. I know that, with the offensive coordinator situation, but that's mitigated by the fact it's Ryan Day's offense anyway. And I've heard he's been calling plays in big games, big moments all year anyway. He's not going to throw Brian Hartline under the bus. The thing that gives me the most confidence by far is Matt Patricia and this defense against, Mark Fletcher's a really good back. Tony's a hell of a wide receiver. They've got some really good offensive linemen, including the guy that's going to be the number 1 offensive lineman off the board in the draft. Dude, Matt Patricia, with all of this time to prepare and all of this talent, and again, with the chip on their shoulder, you add it all up. Miami's going to need like Tony to return a punt for a touchdown, or they're going to need luck with turnovers, whatever, because Ohio State's going to come out there. This defense is just going to smother them, in my opinion.
Here's the thing that makes Matt Patricia really good at his job, Dave. And this goes back to his experience being an NFL coordinator. And in his defense, they have a lot of NFL concepts. The one thing that they do in the NFL is if you have a key player, a home run hitter, those defenses, and Matt Patricia specifically, they scheme to try to eliminate a certain player. For example, I truly believe that they're going to have packages and situations to where they're going to try to take Tony out the game and say, make the other guys beat us. And you look at Mark Fletcher, he was running well, but the bulk of his yards came on that long run against Texas A&M. If Matt Patricia schematically says we're going to take Tony out of the game, then they're going to test Miami and say, where are your other points going to come from? Now, Mark Fletcher is a heck of a back. If you're taking Tony out of the game, and the way to beat this Ohio State team is you're going to have to be able to stretch the ball down the field. that's why Indiana was so unique. Indiana had 3 good wide receivers to where they're able to throw the ball down the field and find a couple of those mismatches. And credit to those wide receivers for making plays. For Miami, can those next set of wide receivers, if Tony's taken out of the game, can they make a difference? And that's where I'm curious, because that's where Matt Patricia's specialty is. And when you talk about Coach Day had mentioned Matt Patricia's experience, like, yeah, him preparing for NFL playoffs and the Super Bowl and the preparation time in between those games, that's where he has really done a really good job excelling. And I thought it was fascinating listening to Jeremiah Smith talk, and he said the intensity is back as far as the practices. Like, guys are really flying around, and Coach Day had made it a point to talk to these guys and say, hey, towards the end of the season, practice wasn't as intense, and they've kind of ramped it back up. I'm curious how to see how that's going to translate over into the field as well, because you look at going into that Michigan and Big Ten title game, you couldn't go balls to the wall intensity, especially when you didn't even know if Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate were going to play.
I totally agree with this. Yeah, if a Buckeyes score 21, lights out. If the offense can score 21, I love our chances against anyone, especially this Miami team, because if they advance, whoever they play in the quarter or the semifinals, Georgia or Ole Miss will have a mobile quarterback. Not that Stockton's going to kill you with his legs if it's Georgia, but Chambliss can run, and Stockton can run. He's a tough guy, but and then if they get to the championship game, if they play Mendoza, they'll have a running quarterback. Could be Dante Moore. Texas Tech's quarterback isn't. Well, is he much of a runner? I'm trying to remember if Texas Tech's quarterback. He's not really much.
They use him in the run game to,
Okay.
Like Urban used to say, when you got a quarterback that you can utilize in the run game, it kind of gives you an odds-on favor in the box. So Texas Tech, they do utilize him. He's not one of those quarterbacks I say he's run first, but they do enough to keep you honest with his legs.
Before I forget, programming note, we're not ending the show right now. We're not going to go too late, but I want to remind everybody, just to tell you guys, not remind you, open practice today for the Buckeyes. Yes, because
really?
the CFP mandates it. Oh, they wouldn't do it on their own. Notice we haven't had any open practices since camp, since the season started. No open practices. Now we get over there for interviews and stuff. You can see like guys coming out. You can see like a little bit at the end of practice, kind of. But yeah, we have a window today. We can film. We can take video. It won't be like too long of a window. It's like maybe like a half hour. I'll have to go look, but it's 4:00 today, 4 Eastern at Ohio State. And we're going to get to see the Buckeyes practice today. So keep it locked to Bucknuts. I'll have photos, videos. We're not going to interview anybody today. I'm not making anybody available for interviews, but 4:00 Eastern today, the Ohio State Buckeyes are practicing, and it'll be open to the media, at least partially.
Dave, the listeners, they're going to be wanting to know, keep your eyes on, do you see any 13 and 14 personnel out there?
And if I do, like, say, please don't do that. No, I do think that was so unsuccessful. I think now I'll be surprised if they lean on that heavily or at all going forward. Maybe they'll mix it in here and there. Buck Rational's like, what? There's an open practice today? No one. I'll probably see Buck Rational down there. He'll just kind of he'll kind of like kind of schmooze his way in there if I had to guess. But all right, let's get to this. So new right guard. We know they're going to have a new right guard. Sounds like it'll be Gabe Van Sickle. Sounds like Josh Padilla is going to play as well. Tegra's hurt, might be out for the rest of the year. We're not sure about that. He's definitely out this game. And I know what everybody's thinking. Good. I don't want to disrespect him, but I do think it is time. Gabe Van Sickle and Josh Padilla. It's time to roll with those guys at right guard. I like it, JB.
I'm ready. I think this was much needed. When you look at the Indiana game, what we talk about, Tegra graded out at a 17 when it comes to pass pro. His replacement comes in, grades out like an 87 against a very talented Indiana team that were doing a lot of twists and stunts. I think it's going to be an addition by subtraction. The beautiful thing about this, and hopefully Tegra gets better. You never want to see players get injured, but the timing of this, Dave, couldn't have been better. Given the new right guards 10 days to get ready, and what do they call him? Sicko. That's his nickname, Carson Hentz.
Sicko mode. He must be a big Travis Scott fan, I joked in my story. People are
Yeah.
like, "What?" I linked to it. And people are like, what does that mean? I linked to it for all the people that might not understand the reference.
Yeah, and so
Sicko mode.
giving him 3 weeks to prepare at that right guard spot couldn't have been better. The one thing I did catch my ears, Dave, when it come Carson Hinsman was speaking about the offensive line. He said that for the last several weeks they had just been working on getting back to the basics, working on their technique, cleaning up a lot of things. And when you kind of take a pause, reset, and say, you know what, let's get back to working on our fundamentals and our technique that we started the season on. Let's make sure that we get those cleaned up as we head into the playoffs. Bringing in a right guard to operate, a new right guard to operate with those guys over the last 3 weeks, I think it's going to bode well. But for me, I am looking forward to it because, as I had mentioned a couple weeks ago, right after the Indiana game, when Tegra was in the game versus Indiana, they had something like a 24 to 25% havoc rate. And that's like crazy high because basically there's, to make a long story short, they were destroying Tegra and it was keeping the offense from reaching their potential. The offense was consistently getting behind the chains because of the havoc percent that they were creating when he was in the game. That dropped dramatically when he came out. And that's when you started to see in that second half, they were moving the football up and down the field. The problem with the offense was they were moving so slow, turtle-like, like they had been doing all season long. They were on these 27 play drives between the two series that if you didn't score, you left your room zero margin of error going away with those two drives without any points. So that's why it's going to be critical for them to get points. If you're going to have these lone sustaining drives, you got to end with 7, at minimum 3 down there. And if they did that, they're the Big Ten champs in the Rose Bowl right now. It's simple as that. They were moving the football in the second half against Indiana, doing what they wanted to do. They were just moving so slow that it killed a significant chunk of clock. And you get down there and don't score, you're in trouble. Your margin of error is razor thin when you move that slow and don't get points.
It looked like they were sleepwalking for a lot of that game. Not Caden Curry, not certain guys, but just overall as a team, it's like. And then I was concerned early in the week of the Michigan hangover because they put, and why wouldn't you put so much into that game? You've lost them 4 straight years. You go up there, you win that game, you beat their butt, and our fans take over the stadium. You get home late because of the weather. It's like, I was kind of worried about the Michigan hangover. Like, hopefully that won't be that big of a deal. But then you had all the recruiting stuff with Chris Henry Jr., who ended up signing with the Buckeyes because Pac-Man Jones is awesome and is a great role model. Awesome. I love that. Chris Henry Jr., boom. I was wrong about perhaps Pac-Man not being the best role model. Totally wrong. Pac-Man's the best. So we got Chris Henry Jr., but that was a situation. Legend Bay was a situation. We're going to get to that in a second. Brian Hartline was a situation. So you added it all up. That is not – I'm not down on that Indiana. That just wasn't Ohio State. I think if they play Indiana again, I think they're going to beat them. I'm confident they're going to beat Miami. Ohio State is going to – we're 3 games away from, basking for the end of time. Only time Ohio State's ever won back-to-back national championships. But, yeah, man, I mean, take it from there. I mean, there was a lot of distractions that week.
There were a lot of distractions going on that week, and I was curious to see how they would bounce back from that Michigan game as well. Because if you think about it too, Dave, even after the Urban Meyer era, Ohio State traditionally don't play as well that following week right after Michigan. There's so much emphasis and effort that's given into that game, and it's your typical sledgehammer game. Getting right back up for it, they usually start slow in the following week, and it's not just under Coach Day. Like, even if you go back and look at Urban Meyer, like against Michigan State, the only time that I can say that they came out just on fire was against Wisconsin when they jumped out on them when they had to, because they didn't know if they were going to make it into the 14 playoffs. And so they had to jump out on them and make a statement early. For this team, though, Dave, I think this break is going to do them well. It seems like it's just been kind of like quiet. It's been calm. The guys have said all the right things. And when you hear K-Max said, we're coming, and Jeremiah Smith saying, hey, we got something for them on New Year's Eve, that kind of tells you like that confidence is still there. They're ramping up the intensity. When Ryan Day said they kind of got that look into their eye, guys are flying around. Those are like telltale signs when you listen to Ohio State to say they're going to be ready. They when Ryan Day says they got that look in their eye, you know that this team's going to be ready to play.
Legend Bay, the aforementioned Legend Bay, all is well that ends well. And we were pretty convinced, like, even though his mom, like, went behind his back. One of the strangest recruiting stories I've ever seen. And that's saying a lot, right? I mean, that might be right up there. Jay Book was like one of the craziest. But hey, all's well that ends well. And he's a Buckeye, and that gives them the number 5 class in the nation, which is awesome, in the 2026 class. So everything worked out well. It sounds like maybe, and he'd have to wait for his 18th birthday. Sounds like his mom finally acquiesced. But that's got to be up there with one of the strangest recruiting stories.
I've never seen anything like that in my life. I'm happy that this kid is finally at a place to where he feels like he is at home. He never left the Ohio State group chats for the commits, so he's always wanted to be a Buckeye. I don't know what happened. I mean, there's some speculation allegedly that his paperwork may have not been officially signed by him to go to Tennessee. I mean, I thought Tennessee did the right thing. At first, you're looking at him, it's like, hey man, if a kid doesn't want to be there, why are you holding him at against his will to be enrolled at Tennessee to go play there? Like that right there has a recipe for disaster. A kid that's going to enter the portal at the very first chance. But I'm glad that it all worked out. For me, I hope that he gets a peace of mind with his family and everything works out, because when this kid comes to Ohio State, I think he's going to be enrolling here pretty soon. Those new enrollees, they'll be on campus here shortly. Once they get to Columbus, you want them to be locked in, focused, feel like they have the support. But overall, I think because this kid obviously has some things that he's dealing with at home, coming into Ohio State's culture, the support system that Ryan Day has created as far as having the counselors and people to talk to, having that support system and the brotherhood, I think will bode well for Legend Bay. You just want him to be able to focus in, make sure that he's, locked in with his schoolwork and he's not having distractions back at home. But I'm curious if they'll make him available for the media, because you remember last year a lot of the freshmen who enrolled early, if Ohio State continues on into the playoff, they're going to be able to practice with the team. I don't think they're going to be allowed to travel. I think that rule may have been changed, but they'll be allowed to practice. And last year they made a lot of those players available to the media to talk to a lot of those freshmen. So I'm curious if they will make Legend available to kind of get his story. And because that's the thing, nobody's really heard from Legend. Supposedly his social media was being controlled by his brother and his mom, and he had to kind of like backdoor and say, hey, that's not me on social media. It's been taken over. So hearing his story, I think will be worth a listen for any listeners out there.
And you nailed it. Yeah, I mean, like last year, guys like Devin Sanchez, for example, went to the Rose Bowl, was practicing and was able to travel with the team. Yeah, so those guys, they're not enrolled yet, but if they were already enrolled, which they're not, but let's say that I think a lot of them are going to enroll January 12th. So if Ohio State's preparing for the national championship game, at least a few days before they would leave for Miami, those guys can practice, but they would not be able to travel to Miami for the national championship game. So which was a cool experience for Devin Sanchez and all those guys last year. All right, great stuff, man. I appreciate it. I hope you and your family had a great Christmas and 5 days and counting. Great stuff, man. I appreciate it, JB.
It's go time, man. Looking forward to the content today with you over there to open practice, and keep an eye out for that 13 and 14 personnel, Dave, because if they're out there in front of the media, the lunatic fringe, they're going to go crazy. They're going to bully these guys out of running 13 and 14 personnel in the red zone, Dave. But all jokes aside, self-scouting should handle that. Like, you should see, like, hey, we're struggling in the red zone every time we're running a rugby type of formation with 22 tight ends on the field.
So it's not like they have the 2 best wide receivers in the country or anything, right? I mean, I know, and I know I was talking up their tight end room coming into the year, but I don't need Carnell Tate going off the field to go to like 13 personnel or JJ going off the field to have 14 personnel. All right, my man, I appreciate it. Go have fun with your family and enjoy the games today, and I will talk to you soon.
All right, talk to you later.
All right, bud. The one and only J Book, love that guy. And love all of you guys. Appreciate you guys tuning in. Large audience. Look at this live audience. Wow. J-Book. What does J-Book do? Puts butts in seats. He's awesome. All right, guys. I appreciate it. Again, 4 o'clock today Eastern. Open practice. So I'll have a mini practice report. I'll lead off with how much 13 and 14 personnel I am seeing out there. Hopefully not too much. We're not going to see much. We'll see the best stretching in the world is what we're going to see. The best damn stretching in the land is my guess. We'll probably see some light drills. I doubt we're really going to see anything great, but hopefully I'm wrong. Hopefully we do. Just being out there at practice is going to be great today. So I'll have a practice report. Might not be my most lengthy practice report during my career covering this team. We'll have videos and we'll have pictures. So keep it locked to Bucknuts for all of that. Thanks to J-Book. Thanks to all of you. I appreciate it. I know you're still basking. Go Bucks.